Alrighty, hello everybody. This is gm-rikoo. It is the 11th of June, 2014. It's 5 days after my 40th birthday. Yay! Something like that. I just turned 40, so I'm an old man officially. Anyway, it is Illyriad Strategy Monday. I messed me up because it's not Monday. It's the Strategy Wednesday thread. For some reason that Twitch did not change that for me. But anyway, we normally do these on Monday. We've done them for the last 2 times on Monday. We were going to do a combat strategy meeting thing on this last Monday, but we decided since Broken Lands came out, we were going to go ahead and just talk about Broken Lands a little bit. You know, in the next week, or I should say next time we do a stream, we'll talk more about combat. I had quite a few volunteers for combat, which is going to be really cool, but I wanted to make sure to get people who really knew their stuff, and I had no shortage of experts writing and say they wanted to be on the stream. So I can't wait till the next stream. But today, right now, we're going to talk to the entire dev team. We have with us James Nieswan, CEO, GM Stormcrow. How are you doing?
Doing great, thanks, Bo. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very good, actually. I'm trying to drink a little tea to keep myself caffeinated. And Ben, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well.
Stormcrow, Thundercat.
That's right.
Every time I talk to you, and if we're talking for a little while, I start to get the Thundercat theme song stuck in my head.
Well, you know, that's the that's the way it was. I did have a different GM name to begin with, but somebody pointed out it sounded quite rude.
Your original GM name?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was Thunderclap, but
that's not. It's rude if you're.
Not rude.
It's rude if you're
not
6.
Rude,
if you're 7 years old or 8.
You're just gonna get teased. Yeah.
You'd have to be like 12 to start getting that, I guess. That's a pretty deep cut for anybody. I mean, unless you're like a, all right, weirdos. All right, and Nathan Cerberus, how are you doing? Did you make the chat go?
I did make the chat make do. I did.
Very good. So, for those who don't understand who the heck we are, by the way, I am a community management, PR management. I'm the guy who talks to the community and then talks to the devs and kind of goes between the two, and everybody yells at me in between. And then I also go and get press releases and talk on Twitter and all that fun stuff. So my job is to kind of communicate with the public and all that. It's actually a really, really cool job because you get to tell people about video games, which is awesome. Cerberus, you are, what's your title, Cerberus? Give us the long one.
The long one would be the art director, art type guy thing.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So when you're
was I that generous to the art type guy thing? I like it.
When you look at the one of the great places you look at the research. By the way, my little GM town is pretty puny, so don't laugh and you didn't research this or whatever. I'm playing barely. But when you look at the art on here now, of course, it's not lit up because I'm still learning it or whatever. But when you look at it. He's the one, Cerberus is the one who does all these wonderful pieces of art. And as a matter of fact, we just recently put up a forum post with, I think, 90? Something like that? 90 pieces of art, Cerb?
That was the, I believe it was the medals that had about 90.
Okay, yeah, sweet. But I mean, yeah. You've been cranking out some art, though.
Yes.
Yeah, and you also do the art for Age of Ascent, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Which is insane. That's a lot of art.
I've been keeping myself busy lately. It's been nice.
That's good, because I was afraid you were going to say I've been goofing off a lot lately.
Well, it's great stuff because from our perspective, it's also Nathan gets to do a lot of different art and a lot of different disciplines. So it's everything from icons to UI elements to technology illustrations or skills or there's just so many different styles involved, and I think that's hopefully that's fun.
Well, absolutely. I think being able to tackle these different projects that are so many different styles really keeps me artistically fresh. So I think it's really nice.
Here's the thing, Nathan, and I'm an amateur artist, but I've been doing it since I was a child. I've been in contests, I've done some gallery things and all that. And I've known a lot of really, really professional artists who do it for a living, a lot of Southwestern artists, like Native American art, stuff like that. And their key to success is always that they just continue to work, like just do something all the time. And you're cranking out so much art. Here in 10 years, you're going to be a maniac, man. I mean, it's like, I can't wait to see what you're doing. So fantastic stuff. I'm happy to see anytime new art comes out because it's like just every little piece is like a little piece of art you could frame. It's really neat.
Yeah. Well, I've got most of them on my wall.
Really?
Yeah. No, I go off the Illyriad store and order posters of my favorites. So timekeeping and block and tackle, statesmanship. I think the one with the dead pawn on the diplomacy tree on the chessboard. There are just so many of them, and it's that style that Nathan has, which is that kind of that we harness for Illyriad, which is that sort of propaganda art. Style, which I just love.
Well, enough about Nathan. I mean, come on, Nathan. We don't want to give him an ego or anything like that. So, by the way, I hope you're working as we talk, Nathan. By the way, because there's no excuses. And then we're talking to Ben. Ben, did we get your title yet? I don't think we did. What's your title, Ben?
CTO, Chief Technology Officer.
Okay, that's a fancy title. What does that mean?
That means James goes, "Why is it not working? Make it work."
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, I can grasp what Nathan does because I'm an artist. I don't know if I could grasp the volume he works in, but I can wrap my head around that. James, though, you do coding as well, though, of course. So I mean, you're both coders. But Ben, that's pretty much all you do is you sit in like a dark room with is it lit by candles or is it more of like is it like little pieces of what's that stuff, the smelly stuff the people use? What's that called?
Potpourri.
Potpourri.
I don't guess much like
Joss sticks.
I'm just giggling. He said potpourri. That's awesome. Yes, you have some potpourri burning in a little whatever they burn it in, and you just code all day like in the Matrix. So it's pretty amazing what you guys do. Honestly, I have the easiest job, and I really appreciate that. But we're going to be talking about The Broken Lands, which it is copyright 1994. But if you want to refer to it, it is The Broken Lands. I always call it Broken Lands. But what is, James, I'm going to ask you first, what is The Broken Lands? I mean, we're talking about it. We've talked about it for a while, and I'm going to show it here on I'm going to go to the strategic map and go down as you explain. But what is The Broken Lands?
At its most basic, The Broken Lands is a doubling of the map size, the available terrain to players. That's at its most basic. Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, it is a vast land expansion. It's a new continent to the south of the existing continent, Algier, that has its own factions and it has its own fractally, as well as handcrafted terrains. It's got a lot more water than Algier, as most players will have noticed. There's a lot more sort of islands and small watery divisions between parts of the map. And it has its own lore and backstory and history. You can read about all of this, and I won't try and give it away in a couple of sentences that won't do it justice. But there's a whole event behind it: the Sundering, the creation of Columnex, and if you read the lore that's available on the website under the faction button under the Alliance profile satellite, you can read the Broken Lands factions and get a sort of a feel for who they are, where they came from, what they're doing, as well as whether they like you or whether they hate you, or who their natural enemies are most likely to be. And all of this at the moment has not very much bearing on the way players play the game, except perhaps in their access to faction hubs for trading. Mm-hmm. But will have increasingly more impact on day-to-day gameplay as time goes by. But I'm sure we'll get onto that later.
Yeah. It's fantastic to see. While you're playing in the game, by the way, a lot of people, what I have right now is I have it kind of in its standard form, but if anybody ever wants to know, you can click out the global chat, move that around and stuff like that. So just be aware that a lot of new players wonder about that. But if you go to the map here, if you look down here on the strategic map, you can click on that, and we added that the Broken Lands recently, which people just flipped out about that. Once you open the strategic map, you can actually click on any section you want, and it's going to bring that to you in the world map, or you can also click on this mini map down here and just explore. And I know that a lot of players were exploring it whenever we were first when it was first explorable. What were you trying to go for with Broken Lands? Because it does look different than LG. It looks a little more wild than LG, I think. But was there a particular theme you're going for, or does it depend on where we're talking about in the particular map?
Well, it slightly depends on where you're talking about on a particular map, but we because Broken Lands was a continent being generated from scratch, only the oldest players, the real the 4-year-old veterans from Illy will remember it. But Illyriad, when we first launched the game, had a randomly generated map. It was just literally mountain 1 square, desert 1 square. There was no water, there were no rivers, there were no seas. It was a just randomly assigned, kind of like Travian in a way, map, and it took us about 6 months to actually create a full geography, and then we sort of reissued it. But there was a lot of legacy squares. You know, when players had settled on a place and they had that terrain, they had to keep it pretty much. So Algeria is a bit more fragmented, which is why it's more of a sort of a single land mass. But because Broken Lands was being generated from scratch, we used, I think, Ben, was it Perlian noise or Gaussian?
Yeah, Perlian noise.
Perlian noise, yeah.
Okay.
And a few other.
What does that mean? What is Permian noise?
Perlian noise. It's a sort of distribution that you can keep zooming into, and there's cohesion between places. So rather than just this will be next to that, you get sort of transitions between areas.
I see. Okay, so it makes it a little more realistic kind of a map?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at the strategic map, and just so people know, like here it says the Middle Kingdom in that blue. That's not water, that's land. So what you're talking about is there is a difference. In Algeria, there's very little water. I guess at the top and bottom, maybe, and then but down in the Broken Lands, it's broken up. I mean, it's really cool. It's like, you can see the water running through it and all that stuff like that. So it feels a little bit more organic to me,
Yeah, absolutely. And what we do is we take the noise to generate both terrains as well as the biomes. Biomes are we use the World Wildlife Fund's classification. Biomes are those distinctive bits of essentially latitude that make a difference between, for example, an Arctic tundra versus a taiga versus a Mediterranean-style plains versus tropical rainforest versus arid, semi-arid, xeric shrublands. All of the different types of a biome that exist on Earth. And we basically use that as a model to generate that according to temperature gradients, south to north in terms of hotter to colder in terms of the Broken Lands, because for the Broken Lands, the equator is essentially halfway between the two continents, which is why Algeria goes down towards deserts and rainforests, and then Broken Lands, as you carry on south, starts with sort of rainforests and deserts, and then goes towards ice at the bottom, the southern pole, essentially. So yeah, because we had a blank slate, we could generated with a bit more definition. So forests are actually genuinely large forests, and rainforests are much larger areas of rainforest style terrain, and we could do a lot more with it. But we also introduced some new biomes to the Broken Lands that don't exist in Algiers, specifically for the area around Columnex. Columnex was where the Sundering occurred. Again, if you read the lore and the backstory, you can find out more about this. And essentially is I won't go into what it is because you can probably work it out, or you can read about it.
We hope
but
so,
essentially, the terrain type there is volcanic.
Yeah.
It's lava plains and the like.
It's crazy.
So yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, Nathan did a great job on the art there. And Nathan, we've got a few other, a whole bunch of other NPC squares as well that are unique to Broken Lands.
Oh yeah, we've got a lot of Mayan set pieces. We've got a few. We got Weeping Willows we put in, some Law Stones. I know some players were asking about the dormant portals. What we had planned.
I'm certainly not going to answer what they're for, but they're dormant and they're portals.
Yeah, I mean, they were asking today, and I said, well, they're smart though. Our players are very smart. Kind of scarily smart sometimes, and if you don't watch it, they'll trick you, like kind of like they're casting a spell over you. Like, so what's that portal for? So I was like, it's a portal and it's dormant, So they're talking about it. It's very interesting to see some of the theories going behind it, stuff like that. Because the truth of the matter is Illy. It's a very tricky game. It seems relatively simple when you're playing in your own little area of the world or whatever the map, but there's so much more to it that for someone like me, there's no way that I even though I've been playing it for a long time and are familiar with it for a long time, there's players who will always know much more than we will. So it's fun to see what they think and how they discuss it and stuff like that. So Calumet is that's what all that is all that's kind of like. Now it's impassable terrain, so does that mean that people can't Or do we want to tell why that is impassable, or is it just because
It's lava and
Okay.
magma and sharp glass and
Oh, sure.
shards of obsidian. It's very nasty terrain. It's also the site of Omen, which is the faction hub in the center of it. And if you look at the faction details, they really don't like anyone. So I'm sure some brave players will settle down there. But I don't. I think they may get more than they bargained for.
We have-
and maybe
yeah.
that's what some players are looking for.
We've had quite a few players down there. Just so new players, if they're watching this later, because a lot of times with our videos are pretty evergreen. They tend to be watched over the course of months, if not years. So if a new player is watching this later, if you're going to be, and maybe we could talk about this real quick, because I don't know if this is the next question. Yeah, I mean, a new player is going to start off in Elgia, but they can move to. So what you're going to do is, as a new player, you're going to start off here in the northern continent, Elgia. In order to move the Broken Lands, James or whoever wants to answer this, Ben, you can answer this. You haven't talked much yet. How are they going to get to the Broken Lands?
Well, when you first start, you have Tenoral's spell of relocation, which you can use to move your capital city there.
Okay, real quick. Where did Teneral come from? Because I know you guys are history nerds. I know there's a lot of authentic stuff in Illy, and then a lot of stuff that of course, the lore and stuff you made up yourself. So, what is Teneral?
I'll pass that one back to James.
Teneral was a made up
Really?
name. Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, Teneral's again, if you read the Elgia faction backstory and lore, Teneral is a wizard of antiquity, presumed dead, who created the marshland above, just above Norweld on Elgia during a war, and then went down to Stormstone Island, which is the very southern island in Elgia, just kind of on its own out in the ocean. And
Talamar.
Yeah, just south of Talamar. Teneral's quite a big figure. A number of the spells are named after him.
Oh, okay, that's
and
great.
his missing presumed dead, I think is the short answer.
Okay, I love that because it really blends in with everything. So they can use a Teneral, which is a spell that will move. It's a free spell. They get correct. They get one per city.
One per player.
I mean, per player, for each account. So you can have two accounts. So they can use it. The problem is that if you just kind of use it lightly, you might want that later. So a lot of players hold on to them forever, and so you can Teneral, which means you get a free move down to the southern continent there. And then what other way that you can
Exodus as well,
which is painful.
Yeah, it's painful. It levels down any buildings past level 12. So new players, if they have Exodus, it won't necessarily be painful to them.
Or
but
new
you do
accounts.
need two cities to do that, because you need always a city in existence.
Right, but a lot of even players who've been around forever, they don't want to play more than one account. I've talked to a lot of players like that, and they literally just I like my one account. I don't have enough brain power because that's how I've always been. It takes a lot to keep track of all your little cities and stuff. So a lot of them will have an extra account. So a lot of them made alt accounts just to get down there. So then you have Teneral, you have Exodus, and there's a third way. Right, man?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, you can send Cephalus, of course.
Waiting for Ben to pick that one up. Absolutely, settlers. Just as you normally do on Elgia, when you want an extra city, a second city, you can settle. There are other ways of getting down there that we just haven't seen them yet. You could go down there, siege someone, and raise and capture a city, or storm and capture a city.
That's my favorite part.
Another way of getting down to Broken Lands. But we didn't want to start the new players there, particularly because one of the the main differences between Elgia and the Broken Lands is the Broken Lands is a nastier place, just in general. The factions are slightly more definite in terms of who they like and who they hate. In Elgia is a bit of a Europe. Everyone has competing political intrigue at the faction level. But they generally tolerate and get on with each other. I guess in modern Europe.
Well, I thought you meant because they're better looking and they have better food. That's what I thought you were getting at.
I don't think either of those things are true.
Okay, I don't know.
I live in Florida, but you know.
Well, you've been to both. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's true. Well, better cheese in Europe.
Okay, there you go.
But so there's the faction side of it. There's also the fact that the terrain is a little less forgiving in Broken Lands. I mean, the seeding of the terrain was equitable in terms of how many, for example, food squares of 20 food or 21 food or whatever in each continent. They are both equal in terms of the percentages that they occupy, but there is much more definite terrain in Broken Lands. You know, the rainforests are much more rainforesty. They're not broken up by plains as they are in Algier. So the terrain is, you have to probably look a bit harder for better places. There's a lot more coastline, which in some ways is good. That means there's more coastal food sovereignty for people who need high food. But on the other hand, that could be in the future something that requires more logistics to navigate around or through or across. So that's certainly something to consider.
Yeah.
And there are also the factions themselves have more definite, I think I mentioned, more definite dislikes and likes. For example, there are a number of faction hubs down in the Broken Lands who, by default, will only trade with orcs. If you're not an orc, you're not trading in that hub.
Yeah.
Now, that's going to be interesting to see how that develops. I mean, we haven't put too many of those in, but there are, there are differences between the continents.
Well, and we have to say up front, and a lot of players will ask as soon as something like this is released, or as soon as they see what goes on, what is on the map currently, like some of the hubs and stuff like that. We're not perfect by any means. No designer is perfect, so some of it might need some tweaking. But one of the ways we figure that out is we put it on there. We put out the hubs. We put all that, and like James said, it'll be interesting to see how it starts to. Don't make me laugh, chat room. The difference is that once the players start interacting, we might learn a lot from that. So there might be some tweaks coming down there. In fact, I guarantee there'll be some tweaks coming down the road. Don't you think, James?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, we're quite keen not to change the terrain itself, because a lot of players will make decisions based on what's around them and all the rest of it. If there's a small area of terrain that no one has gone anywhere near, well, there's no reason why there couldn't be some development of a faction story that involves maybe a faction from Algier coming down and settling.
Right. I mean, that's what I mean. We might do some little things,
or even some quite big things. Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to speak on this at all, but I thought the launch and everything and how players interacted, because we get to see a lot of behind the scenes information that the players, of course, can't, which is one of the fun parts of the job. It's like watching a living world live. Is that it actually went really smoothly. A lot of people got down there really quick. A lot of people, and you guys can talk on this, surprised me at how it was obvious they planned this out, which was pretty crazy to see how quickly people moved in and organized and grouped.
Firstly, Ben, I think it went pretty smoothly. How about you?
Yeah, it went really smoothly.
I mean, we didn't actually, I don't think, run into a single bug on someone tenerilling or exodusing or anything. One guy had a problem saying he couldn't tenerill, but I think that was because he was pressing the wrong button. But apart from that, I actually genuinely don't think we've had an issue. Which, touch wood.
It made me a bit nervous.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Because there's a lot of code. There's a lot of code in there, and it's basically doubling the workload, for example, for bits of the map that they have to do and NPCs and so on. Yeah. So the bit that we're sort of watching quite carefully at the moment is the seeding of NPCs. So I think I explained in the forum, we use an emergent behavior model for our NPCs.
Here real quick. I love these so much. Talk about these guys.
Yeah, well, basically, rather than loading in, this is where dogs, or this is where lions are, and they move within a 10 square radius of here. We don't do any of that. What we do is we load in not complete, but a fair simulation of animal behavioral instincts, traits, and propensities. So rather, when we describe the difference between an elephant and a cloud of locusts, we basically do that in terms of numbers. So we say, okay, clouds of locusts move fast, they're very hungry,
right.
They roam wherever the food is, they don't care, they don't bother about nesting, they don't, etc., etc., etc. So we load all of that in as numbers, and that will describe how those animals behave. So they will procreate, they will split, they will separate, they will search out food, they will do everything that animals should generally do. And then we'll have a completely different set of numbers for elephants. Elephants are generally relatively not solitary, but they're small groups, and they like their territories, and they're very territorial, and they're not. They can be aggressive, but only under certain circumstances.
Sure.
So we kind of load all of this in sort of mathematical models.
Right.
And for us, that's really cool. But having released the NPCs onto Algier, we don't quite know. Genuinely, we don't quite know how they will interact and behave with the new terrains and biomes that they have in the Broken Lands. So we have to monitor very carefully how each type of animal is doing, because we could quite happily have an extinction level event if we released if you put people in the kind of the wrong place, and they can't cross the water, and they find that they run out of food too quickly, and their predators come straight in and take them out,
right?
Then we have to start really messing with things. So we had it before. I don't know if anyone from Algier remembers the island of poisonous crawlers. We had this kind of Galapagos island where a pair of poisonous crawlers, a sort of a bug in a nasty critter in Algier, managed to cross the ocean to an island where they had no predators, and they had perfect food, and there were no humans there.
So awesome.
The whole island just became overrun by them. And we eventually had to nuke them because there was no way of getting rid of them.
But
that's cool.
That's a living. That is a living system. That it's kind of hard to see because they're not animated 3D creatures, whatever. But how I've always explained, and what always drew me to Illyriad, was the fact that each one of these squares. First of all, each landmass is what, 2,000 by 2,000, right? Something like that?
2001 by 2001, I think. Is that right, Ben?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, insane.
Although we've also got 300 squares of ocean between the two,
right.
So it's kind of a bit weird now. It's minus 1,000 from minus 1,000 plus 1,000 top left down to plus 1,000 minus 3,300 plus 33 minus 3,300 in the bottom right.
It's huge. And what I was telling people is what's cool is each little square is, imagine that you're playing a lot. I like to use the example of like a Carcassonne or something, like however you say it. Some board game. But this is so big that even if each one of these squares was, like a quarter inch, just do the math, and you'll see how large the map would be if you were to print it out or make it or something. So that's what I love about it, is you have these animals that move across they interact. In fact, when you were seeding them earlier, was it this week or last week? I can't remember.
Last week.
Yeah. Were you were concerned with them just running into each other too early and having issues like that, or did you see any issues?
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, you can probably answer this better because you were doing most of the seeding.
Yeah, where was it? I think it was in West March. That went a little bit crazy with dogs.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that was awesome.
There were thousands of them everywhere. And that was sort of crowding out the other NPCs, because the NPCs do interact. If it's the same species, then they'll breed and they'll join groups, and when those groups get too big, they'll split.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And keep breeding. But when there's a mixture of the NPCs, when they encounter each other, they'll fight and they'll drop hides and things on the ground that players can then harvest. Even without players' interaction, they can still sort of harvest things if you don't have troops from the NPCs interacting. But the fact that it was primarily just dogs meant that there weren't any other NPCs there to keep the population under control. So I had to sort of reset that.
It's so cool. Like I said, you're not necessarily you're seeing it in real time. It's just very slow, but you're not necessarily seeing animation stuff. But the cool thing is you guys built this game that has the math in the systems that are really working. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I'm just such a nerd for that stuff. So, thank you, chat room. If you want to link me to cool creatures on the map or anything that looks interesting on the map, feel free. So, thank you, Snow Dog and Bytor, who is his other half there. I think he linked me to a rhino. That's pretty cool. And by the way, just so people know, I just sent a single scout to what did I see? To a snake here, to a giant anaconda, and it's going to take 4 days. And I'm in Algia, so that gives you an idea of how massive it is. So it's really epic.
Going back to your earlier point about the why aren't we starting new players in the Broken Lands?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as well as the obvious hostility of the NPCs of being a little bit harsher. There's also no players there, so our community is very helpful in helping new players. But as you say, the distances are so vast that it's a lot harder for our existing community on LGO to help new players in the Broken Lands. So.
But that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And despite us making a change that we announced a few weeks back, where if you send a caravan to a player under the Rainbow New Player Protection, it moves at double speed. It would still take potentially days to get there.
But I love that scale, And if you don't like that scale, come speak to me, and I'll explain it to you where you love it as well, because that's the most awesome thing. It's just I like to picture that all the players are sitting around this giant board, moving these little, armies around and stuff. It's really a lot of fun. All right, so let's get on to some of the questions. We don't want to take everybody's evening here, because I know everybody's eager to get back to playing Illy. Kim, you do want to talk a little bit about trade between the two areas. We should explain that many players want to support each other. They want to send each other the goods. In Elgia, it's like, hey, you want some resources? Here you go, pal. But now we have new and established players in both maps, although of course the southern map is still getting established. How is trade going to work? What are there going to be some of the differences or key differences that people need to keep in mind?
Okay, trade between the continents is freely available. You can send resources directly to a town, and the hubs work the same way. You could send a trader from Algier, put them in a hub in the Broken Lands, or have a trader in two hubs in the Broken Lands and do trades between those hubs. So that's all still working as normal. The difference is town-to-town trades, where you put your own caravans up in sort of escrow, as it were. They're locked up in your marketplace, and you have goods in the market. You can only see town-to-town trades on the same continent. So if you're in the Broken Lands, you'll only see people who have those goods, which can only be basic resources anyway. You can only see your own continent, and that means that if somebody accepts that trade, it's not going to go lock up your caravans all the way across two continents.
Right, and then I guess the difference there is we want to make it so that, it would take so long to trade necessarily, so it's not like we're discouraging, but we kind of left it up.
And also the onus is on the person who put that trade up,
right,
to support it with the caravans, whereas the way the trade hubs work, you put your goods in the trade hub, and the person buying or selling to you has to use their own caravans. So it's a lot more flexible system.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, players can directly send caravans from one continent to another to their towns or other people's towns. They can send traders and set up trade hubs in either continent. The only thing that they can't do is see town-to-town trades between continents.
Right. For example, I just sent one to a player, asked them to link me to their town. I sent a single gold. By the way, I expect that back. But that's gonna take 4 days, which is fantastic. So it's possible just town to town. You're talking to your buddy or whatever. I like to write in-game messages. I think that's cool. I think if people write in-game messages, like they're sending an actual letter to each other and saying, "Do you want to buy this?" Some people come in to chat. I know there's a couple players we have who are super into trade. And they're like, "Buy this, buy that," and they'll literally just send. They'll say, "I'll send you the gold." All right, I'll send me the goods, and they trust each other. Just good old fashioned trade.
You can still do that.
Yeah, which is fantastic. All right, let's see here. Go ahead.
One thing I will note is the resource distributions are slightly different in some of the goods, some of the advanced products.
Do you mean between the two continents? One has there's some differences there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we'll let players discover.
Exactly, which is hard not to say anything. It's fantastic, though. So the continents are different. There's a lot different about them, and we wanted to have that feeling come across, and not only in the shape, the distribution of the water, the landscapes, the art, everything like that, but it still flows, of course. It's just, it feels more, I think it feels more, more not desolate, but more, primitive, maybe, like still.
Yeah, I mean,
formed.
there's still stuff to come. I mean, I know we weren't going to change the terrain. There are bits of the terrain we're going to change. For example, people have noticed there aren't any kind of mystery areas. For example, on Algier, you have things like the Rift, you have the Misted Lands, you have Audrey. There's a variety of areas in Algier that have specific purposes, many of which have been solved and discovered, and many of which have not. There are going to be the same in Broken Lands, and Nathan, I think you probably know more about some of the stuff that's coming than I do.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna have a lot of fun stuff. I want to do some Mayan/Aztec kind of thing. We talked about this a little bit. Kind of a almost a Raiders of the Lost Ark style idol, Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Kind of mysteries like that, fun stuff.
Very cool.
And I know we're going to have a lot of stuff with the Cult of the Black Oak.
Yeah, oh god, I haven't actually mentioned Cult of Black Oak. People won't be able to find them on the faction list because I don't think they're there at the moment. They were originally on the original Broken Lands map, but Cult of Black Oak are kind of in the northwest corner. And Nathan, how would you describe them?
We're kind of going with a almost Lovecraftian type.
Oh, nice.
Thing with the Cult of the Black Oak, so that's kind of the feel we're going for with them. So the art style with all the things we have planned for them in the future will be kind of broadly based on Lovecraft.
So they like to make pies. They like to sew. A lot of crafts and
absolutely,
okay.
yeah.
A lot of Afghans. So
changing the universe, altering your mind.
I don't know where you're going with that. That sounds awesome. All right. Let's see the next question here. And by the way, chat room, either in the actual chat room in game, if you want to ask questions in there, go for it. I can't guarantee that we're going to get to them because we're going to have a few. If you're in the chat on twitch.tv/luna_Illyriad, if you want to ask them in there, go for it. And if you want to tweet a question at us, go for it at Illyriad. Surprise, surprise. So if you have any questions, feel free, because it always gets down to the last 5 minutes. Everybody's like, let me ask a question real quick. I have a few from some players, but if you have a particular one, whatever you want to ask, we might be able to answer it or not. I can't guarantee it, but feel free to ask. So that's trade. Oh, here's a good one. New players, they're still, I guess you could say, born when they come into the game. They're still going to be in LG, and what people commonly call the newbie ring, which is kind of, if you look on the distribution, you can see some of the newbies kind of. I forgot how to see that, all of them there. I always forget.
Strategic map, and then do all towns and turn regions off.
All towns. There we go, and then turn regions off. Bloop.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see if I'm looking here, you can kind of see the newbie ring. That's where you're kind of distributing. Want to be nice and as close as we can to being fair. To newbies. So once they're there, though, they go back to they can go down to Broken Lands. But what should a new player consider when they go down to, or even kind of somebody who hasn't been down there yet? What should they consider? Is there differences in the layout? Is there something they should worry about? Of course, we don't like to give too much advice on your play style. You can go wherever you want, but is there something they should be looking for? Whoever wants to take that, kind of give some advice to a newbie.
I will. Firstly, to a new player, I'd say don't waste your Tenoril before you know really what you're doing. There are uses for Exodus and Tenoril in advance, and maybe getting some settlers together before you Tenoril, because you don't necessarily want to Tenoril over great terrain, because you take your terrain with you when you use a Tenoril spell, and that's worth bearing in mind. I'm sure if you search the Illyriad forums for terraforming, you'll find out probably more information about how you can possibly change the terrain of the world better to your suiting. So I would certainly say as a new player, don't do it immediately. I'd also say as a new player, I think one of the greatest advantages, one of the greatest things in Illyriad is the way the alliances stick together and the way the alliance stuff works. And I actually think it matters less where you are than who you're playing with.
Yes.
And I think finding an alliance who suits your play style and seeing what their plans are might be better because if you're at the other end of the world and you get into trouble, they might not be able to help you. So I do think that's quite important. Anyone else have any thoughts?
Ben's got to have something. Ben?
No.
No? That long of a pause to say no?
I guess the other thing I would say, the other thing to look out for, really genuinely, is do pay attention to, if you are wherever you're settling, either on Algier or on Broken Lands, do pay attention to the nearest hubs to you, and pay attention to which factions are in those areas and how those factions regard you and your race by default, because you might be, moving yourself into a world of future herd.
Now, is there, without giving so much away, where would somebody look to find out? And I think you said it earlier, but let's say I wanted to land in a certain area. If I wanted to check out this spot I'm looking at right now. By the way, I found a faction hub earlier. What was it called? The New Light. Fantastic looking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that one of yours, Nathan? By the way.
Yes. Yeah.
I love it. I love the little lights on
all of the.
They all have a unique hub, don't they? New Light.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. I just
Fantastic.
lost him. I think I can just look him up because of our handy search thing here. I think so. But anyway, bloop. Maybe not. I'll find it in a minute. So let's say if I'm wanting to settle here in the Broken Lands, and I'm saying, this is a nice spot. It's got some grass and stuff. What would probably be the next step? If you're in an alliance, they're probably going to give you a lot of advice for where to go.
Well, again, on the strategic map, if you want to find those faction hubs, if you pop in there, switch on the factions switch, that will show you in a sort of pink fuchsia dot where those faction hubs are, and you can then look those up and find a bit more detail about them.
Okay, so where'd that go?
Also,
go ahead.
You perhaps want to pay attention to any mines or herbs around you. Mines are probably more important because they don't move around. If you overharvest them, they should come back eventually.
Okay.
Whereas herbs, if you completely pick them and decimate them, then they'll move somewhere else, being plants. That's what they do.
Okay, so
they're probably two things to pay attention to.
All right, so you want to just kind of look around and take your time. Again, though, Illy is definitely a game for groups of players. You can solo, and not a lot of people do that. A lot of people play by themselves and just don't really worry about it. But if you really get into it, you're gonna eventually join an alliance, and they're gonna help you out a lot. Or just general chat. General chat's really good about with advice, stuff like that. Let's see here. Somebody in the chat room says they read Stormcrow's warning a day or so ago about traveling the area around Olam. What's up with that?
Olam, I think he means Omen. But yeah, that's the center of Columnex, the Sundering. If you look at that hub, click on it, and look at the faction that own it, they're set at -95 to everyone, which is basic. They hate everyone, and when factions go live, anyone in what they perceive to be their area of terrain is not going to be having a nice time.
Yeah, awesome.
Understood.
So, that's this is what I mean about checking the faction standing for the hub. No one can trade at Omen. You need to click the center of it, I think.
I'm sorry, I missed you when you just said that last time. To check, if I'm looking at the hub right now, how do I check the faction trade?
Click on the word Omen in the middle of the hub. It's a multi-square hub, that one, so you have to click on the middle of the hub.
I might have to. You have to type.
Have you not linked it?
No. I might have to make a little change. If you click in the middle, just under the name there, in the tower in brackets, you'll have to search for it at the moment. But I'll look to put in a link to faction there.
Well, let me go to one, because I want people to be able to, especially new players, to be able to do this, because a lot of people ask in chat. But let me just find one real quick, because we want to find out. And so when you're going to click on it. Oh, no, don't tell me I didn't even click on it right there. Hold on a second.
Yeah, it's the square above.
Well, you're looking at the 30-second delay. Just pretend it's the Grammys. I'm looking for the fact. Here we go. Okay, so I've got this one here, right? So,
hey guys, we're awesome at our own game.
Well, okay. So I've got it here. I've got the faction. I've got the Hall of Reflection, the College of Science, right? So
yeah.
Okay, so how do I find it out from there?
Okay, so the thing in the back bracket, the College of Science, put that in the search bar. Do the College of
Science.
That should come up. You should see faction.
Oh, here we go, right here. Okay, so look. Okay, so now when I've done that, what now?
Oh, sorry. You get the drop down in the search box, and you click on that, and that will take you to the faction page for that. The College of Science.
Oh, okay. So what I'm doing, what I'm doing is I'm actually looking at the faction hub here on the map.
Yeah, and in square brackets behind it, after its name, it says the name of the faction.
Right. Oh, that's weird.
So you're going to the faction hub, but you want to go to try the College of Science.
There
just with a "the" at the front.
It does not pull anything up. Maybe. Oh, such a dork. I'm sorry. I might sleep. This of silence, not science. Oh my God! Forgive me. That was. Can we petition that, please? Okay, there we go. It was my complete and total bad because I was wondering why it wasn't working. Okay, so this will tell you everything you need to know about it. This will tell your standings and everything. Guys, edit that out. So we're gonna have to wipe out the chat's memory. Anyway,
science, silence.
Yeah, there we go. So here,
the texts are probably the same.
Well, I haven't had much chance to look around. Yeah, that's it. All right, so you're gonna look here. It's gonna not only give you lore, it's gonna give you standing. It's gonna go all. Look at that, -20 with orc. I mean, just it's everybody hates orcs. What can we say? So very very just
so
full of
information.
information.
Scroll down and see how they react to on the left that graph. Bars.
Right, neutral humans and dwarves, they like elves, they hate orcs, -20. So there you go. Now, what does that mean, though, just real quick?
Well, -20 is actually just means that they don't really like orcs very much. They will still trade with you. Just below that graph, you can see there's the actual meanings of the standings or the standing threshold.
Right.
So -35 is where they anything worse than -35 they won't actually trade with you.
And they'll actually, but if it's minus, it could affect the pricing and everything. So
it will affect the pricing. It will affect the taxation they charge rather than the pricing.
Yeah.
But the overall price that you pay for various services. But the further ones that you go down to, where that will actually start, genuinely attacking units on the map, or indeed. Your towns or your military units as well. It slightly depends. Again, what we've done is we've gone for an emotional behavior system with factions. So we haven't loaded in specifics. We've loaded in traits and propensities. Mm-hmm. So, for example, a group of goblins, 5 goblins on their own, will behave differently from 5,000 goblins who might be braver and more. Have a higher propensity to actually make a military maneuver of their own, whereas 5 goblins will probably run because they're more fearful. They have a higher propensity to fear it in when they're in small numbers.
Very cool.
So there's all sorts of things that are loaded in about the factions. They're not live yet, but we are. We've got a few other things to get through. Stuff that we promised. For example. My next big thing really is counterclaiming sovereignty and Locke's, Lakes, and Tarn's food sovereignty abilities. Once those are done, there's still some bug fixes to do. There's still a few other things. I still want to look at permanent accounts sitting very closely, but getting the factions and faction behaviors more dynamic and actually doing stuff is a very high priority for us, largely because quite a lot of the code, the emotional behavior code, has been written already for nature. It's much more complicated for trying to model at least some group dynamics and humanistic anthropomorphic behaviors than it is with purely animalistic driven behaviors. Right. But having said that, we've got to start somewhere. So we have to, at least start it with the factions that hate everyone. The Melders, the guys at Omen, Hurgurst, those kind of people. We've got to. No one can complain if a faction that hates them very much kills them mercilessly.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not entirely the original intention of the code, but it's still, you can't complain about it. So we can start. The very polarized faction behaviors are the easiest ones to done. The more the easiest ones to model. The more nuanced ones in the middle with likes and dislikes are going to be another. It's going to take more time to get right, and we really want to get it right.
Yeah.
Because unpicking, it's going to take just me getting a few numbers and a few lines of code wrong, and suddenly, the Council of Illyriad, King Sigurd's troops rampage through the Middle Kingdom, killing all newbies. It would not be good.
That would be awesome. Are you kidding? But well, for me,
I don't think anyone else would be as thrilled as
I would love to see that. But just strictly for viewing pleasure, not.
Yeah, I mean, unpicking it and making it all right at the end would be very painful. I'm sure.
I think that's awesome though. And you can do it in layers. And another cool thing about Illy, which is a lot of games don't have this ability. Of course, it helps that we're in a browser, but it's how you guys have made the game. Is we can quote unquote patch it or whatever, and you don't even have to. Sometimes you might have to just refresh the browser, but it doesn't. You don't have to wait for a large patch and tell everybody it's going to take hours.
Release of the Broken Lands involved zero downtime.
Yeah, which is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. All right, so I think we kind of got. By the way, anybody have any last questions, either in the regular old chat in the game or in the Twitch chat or on Twitter, asking. But I think I had 3 or 4 as well from players, but we pretty much covered those. I think talking about saving the Teneral. Which is we talked about that a little bit. I think they were asking about the capital city thing, where that's something where you could change your capital city because people were asking about that. All I can say about that is that's kind of a soon thing, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's a question. Maybe Ben, because we haven't talked about this yet in any great detail. So here we go. Everyone, you can witness a dev chat.
There you go.
And would it be much easier not to allow people to change capital city, but just to allow them to Teneral any of their cities? They still only get 1 per account.
That would probably be quite easy.
That would be very easy to do. So if that's a solution, we allow people to Teneral any of their cities, not just their capital. Now there is a downside to that, of course, which is that anyone who's already had to exodus and change capitals and Teneral and blah blah might be mighty pissed off. So that's something we have to consider as well.
Yeah,
they had to do it the hard way.
Game development, you're never gonna make everybody happy, but
no.
I agree. You want to make as many people happy as you can.
You want to do what's right first and foremost, and then that will make probably equal numbers of people happy and unhappy. That's generally been our experience with every release we've ever done. Is everyone polarizes into I love it or I hate it. So there are. It's the internet. There's not that much nuanced opinion going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say our players are fantastic, and they're much more mature and better than most players of most games I've ever played. But
we have zero.
I used to be in Goonswarm in Eve.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen the depths. But there's a whole different types. There's different types of players and different types of play styles, and there's different ways of looking at things, and I actually think certainly we get a lot of sort of back chat from people, by which I mean we get chat on the QT, just stuff that people send us saying, I saw this happen, or you've made this change, you've done the right thing. They don't necessarily say it in the forums, they don't necessarily say it in global chat. There is a silent majority. The people who speak the loudest are often, giving great advice, but they're also often the people who just speak the loudest, and that's the same in any game.
That's a general rule.
Yeah.
In fact, I through my old career as a writer for games, it was the general rule is around 10 to 15% of your players are the ones who speak, and all you have to do is ask yourself, when was the last time I filled out a comment card at the restaurant? And you never, unless you had a bad experience. So but I mean, what's name, or I'm sorry, in the chat here, we might just give a silly nod to this. I don't know what happened with sounds. It's so funny. I said you could ask anything. I didn't say you'd get an answer in the chat room, but go for it.
Well, we still I'm still really keen on sounds. I mean, anyone who's played 80% will probably notice that there are sounds, although they will have noticed there aren't sounds you use Internet Explorer, because the web audio API, which is the HTML5 standard for playing sounds in the browser, pretty much accepted, has not been universally accepted. Although I believe, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, IE is putting it in?
Yeah, it's in development.
It's in development for Internet Explorer. So it's not completely settled as a standard yet.
Yeah.
And so when it is, we will make sure that we take full advantage of it. It's just that when standards are in flux, we can often waste a lot of time by developing sounds that only work in 3 browsers and then having to do a flash fallback for IE or whatever it is.
Or you have one browser that works in only, or very, what I'm saying, and then you have
and they changed their implementations because it's still settling and.
It only started working in Firefox about 1 month ago.
So we were well ahead with recording battle sounds for Illyriad. I see this guy Jagoff. I mean we're ahead of the curve on that. I don't know if you guys know. Illyriad-games is part of the HTML5 gaming committee on the World Wide Web Consortium, the W3C, the people who set the standards for future development of HTML. We contribute conformance tests to the Kronos group for WebGL. We're sort of we're really quite embedded in the HTML5 gaming development and the community for HTML5 generally, not just for Illyriad. Mm-hmm. And so, we do keep abreast of all the latest standards and all the latest stuff. The Gamepad API or WebRTC or whatever else is going on. We're sort of part of that process. Mm-hmm. So. We sometimes we get ahead of ourselves, and I think the sound was one of the things we did get ahead of ourselves.
I've talked to a lot of there's quite a few games out there, browser-based games, especially that use no sound, because a lot of people actually like to listen to the radio or talk on Skype or whatever. So it's something we don't hear a lot about, but no pun intended, but we have heard it occasionally. So that's a big soon on that one. How about Lakes and Locks SOV? Anything on that? Do you want to say anything about that?
I'm sorry, I missed that question.
Lakes, locks.
Sorry. As I said, I think counterclaiming sovereignty is first, and then lakes, locks, tarns sovereignty is next. Mm-hmm. It's on my list anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So we kind of talked that earlier. Soon on that, but it's definitely on the list and all that. And if you have suggestions, I would just like to say. Oh, by the way, before we go on to kind of closing up here, Cruncher Sport, which is an unusual name, but okay. But he's commenting that, or he or she, I should say, is commenting that players from different alliances appear to be working better when landing close to each other in the Broken Lands and would be in Algia. Okay. I'm not sure if he's kind of nodding to the 10 square rule the players have come up with by themselves. By the way, that's besides sovereignty, that's one of those things that they've really enforced, kind of like terraforming. That's not a term we came up with, correct, Amundo? That's something.
That's something that the players. I mean, as you know, Bo, we build a sandbox and we don't dictate how the players play it. Yeah. We really don't. We don't really care, I mean, Illyriad, as you've often said yourself, is an ultimate war game. It's, after your 1 week of protection, you can be sieged out of existence. Right. And the fact that it's developed to be the community it has and helping new players and all the rest of it is very awesome. Right. But that's emergent behavior from our players. It's nothing we've dictated. And it's great. It's great. It's very welcoming. It's very good for new players, and that's fantastic. Yeah. Will it always be like that? I don't know. So players from different alliances appear to be working better. Is that just? I wonder. Maybe that's because they have more space.
I think it's because,
or maybe they've made pacts.
I think I've explained Illy to people all the time by saying it's like if you had a party, right? And you had your best friends over and some new people from work and stuff, and you gave everybody a loaded gun. Now, don't get me wrong, we're not getting into all that, but that's the best. That's the best thing to say. You gave everybody a loaded gun, and everybody's sitting around, and there's some tense stuff. But nobody's going to really do anything because everybody's got a loaded gun. So everybody's a little bit scared. It's kind of like one of those scenes from those movies in not Usual Suspects. Tarantino's earlier one. Oh, darn it, what am I forgetting that? Anyway, they're all pointing the gun at each other.
Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, it's that kind of a scene. So everybody's tense, but nobody's going to do anything because everybody's got one. But, in the meanwhile, you're chatting, you're having a good time, but you still have that little gun. So I'm thinking that probably in the Broken Lands what's happening is they have that kind of mentality, but it's also, you also kind of, this is the stuff I love to think about during the day, by the way. You also have kind of the sense of wonder. It's a brand new area, so tensions are pretty light down there right now.
Yeah, I think that's true. I also think some alliances may be making some pacts that maybe only apply to Broken Lands with each other that don't necessarily apply in Algier. Because in Algier, there are it's much clearer where the strategic resources are, where the power hubs of the alliances are, all of those sort of things. But whether those things will carry through to the Broken Lands, I think I mean, I'm guessing. I don't know, but I would be surprised because our alliance politics are very, they're very dynamic, and I'd be surprised if people hadn't made quite specific arrangements for how they're going to interact with each other in the Broken Lands.
I will say this, and you can quote me, that will change in the future. There will be plenty of good old fights and wars and all that fun stuff, which is what Illy really does well, is just, massive battles. That will happen. So it's going to be interesting to watch. If everybody keeps an eye on the strategic map, if you have a couple alliances, check on their alliance map, and you'll see their distribution across the maps. That's really fun to watch as they spread out. You can really get into it, and it will start. I mean, once people really start getting down there, a lot of people are settling, and it's taking forever to get down there and everything. I think Exodus as well. So we're gonna see what happens. I can't wait to see it in like a month or two. It's gonna be real hilarious. Let's see here. Is any more questions? I don't see any in the chat room. You guys have anything else last you want to say? Ben, do you want to say anything last before you go?
No, I'm all good.
You're too easy, Ben. By the way, that voice and that timbre he uses, that's when he's panicked, when he's tired, when he's awake. It's the same. It's even kill.
It is always even killed, even when I'm screaming, this isn't rocket science.
Yeah, but
why is it broken?
Even in chat, even in text form, it's that same even tone. I don't know how he makes a tone in his chat.
Well, it is also 2 a.m. in the UK.
Oh, that's right. Well, come on. It's more Ben than the time zone. We know that. Nathan, how about you? Want to say anything before we go?
Yeah, just keep an eye on the map. We're gonna have a lot of cool stuff coming out pretty soon. So just look forward to some new cool stuff.
Yeah, there's going to be some awesome stuff, and it's going to continue to develop.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that we did with Broken Lands is that we seeded lighthouses and ferry posts and beach fishermen's huts on the coastline in locations for NPC squares, and I have to say, I have been wondering about whether people would want those in Algier or not, because they are quite cool. Or variants of them that may be more Algier focused.
Right. If you hear anything, during the stream like that,
on that,
throw it onto the forums and suggestion area. You can in-game mail me if you want. In-game mail, I get a ton of them in a day, so it might take me a while to get back on you. MJ just proved exactly why we always say soon. She's not playing she or he, I'm not sure, I'm sorry, not playing the telephone. Was a decision made on capital city Tenero? Will they be able to Tenero any city, blah, blah, blah? We were talking. It was just a discussion, so we haven't said anything about that. This is an idea, so just so that you know that MJ pass it on an exciting tone that it's a soon type of maybe. All the things you can think of, put them all in one sentence. They're saying soon, maybe, possibly. All right. So my name is gm-rikoo.
Oh.
Yeah, go for it.
One quick thing. It was mentioned in chat a while back, just after the launch of the Broken Lands. One thing we are doing is taking a sort of daily snapshot of the strategic maps. So,
yeah.
We'll probably do something with that in the future, so you can have a look at the historic and the evolvement of the maps and the alliances over time.
Now, you showed me a little bit of one, didn't you, I think, earlier?
Yeah, it wasn't too exciting.
Well, I mean,
it was only 5 days long.
Yeah,
Ben, if you backfilled it all the way to when the game launched,
my God,
the town player, and then had a little date and just ran through it 1 frame per day.
You can finish up now, though.
Well, and what I'm saying is, seriously though, it was he took it and he put them all together like an animated GIF for those Tumblr fans out there, and it was only 5 days, and it was small too. I think if you made it a little larger, but it was interesting to see. Especially the movements down there into the Broken Lands, it's pretty interesting. The day it went live, we can as developers we can see the movements, and it was just like bam, 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 bam. It was really funny to see the alliances that were just. I mean, some of the alliances were obviously like they didn't say a word about it, and a lot of them they might chat or they might be real social or whatever. But they didn't say a word about it, and all of a sudden, bam! It's like they're organized like ants down there. It was really good to see. So
no, there's definitely some people that seem to have prepared for it really quite well, which is cool. I see some people asking about the fortune tellers. This is Ben. Basically, the fortune tellers move around the map. We've only got 4 of them, and suddenly we've doubled the map size. So there are, we probably should make it 8 fortune tellers, I would guess. So there you go. There's another discussion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that'll be quite a quick and easy fix. But it won't be necessarily 4 per continent. One day you might have 8 on one continent, and the next day 8 on the other.
Yeah, they're going to travel around and be mysterious like they should be. All right, thanks everybody for joining me. Thanks team, that was great. That was awesome, and hopefully you got some good information out there. Again, if you have any questions, in-game mail me. You can just find me, gm-rikoo. You just send me a mail. If you have some discussion or if you have a really detailed plan, you can in-game mail them to me, but I get so many, it kind of can get caught in the shuffle. What I typically do is copy and paste them to a file so that we can sit around all day and just read and read and read. No, but seriously, put it on the forum under the discussion, wherever it belongs. And then you also have the input from other players, and then we get to sit back, because we do read the forums, trust me. And we get to sit back and read all that stuff. And there's so many good ideas in there and good discussions. And you actually learn a lot as a developer. Oh, maybe we need to tweak that or push that or whatever. So the forum is the best place. And you can also, of course, follow us on Twitter or even tweet at us at Illyriad. This will be going up on YouTube within probably tonight. So I'll be putting this on the forums. If you hear anything during the stream that you may need some clarification, whatever, just in-game mail me and I'll talk to one of the developers. I'll say, hey guys, wake up. I got a question to ask you about something silly. They love it when I do that, I'm sure. And then we'll go from there. So thanks for joining me, guys.
Yeah, my pleasure, bro. It was a great chat.
Ben, I would say I'm sorry I let you get back to sleep, but you never sleep, so.
That's kind of true.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time within a month. Next strategy. I'm thinking about doing them every 2 or 3 weeks, but we'll see how it goes. The next one will definitely be about combat. So if you have any combat advice or you want to be on, hey, Coda's in the chat. Hey, Coda. If you want to talk about combat, feel free to in-game mail me. I already have a few volunteers. I need about 2 or 3, and we're not going to get into how your alliance personally wins wars or nothing, so don't worry about that. We're just talking about general advice, some, idea about, maybe stuff that help newbie players as well as some advanced topics as well. So, all right, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.